So the RNC is going on right now up in Milwaukee, and it's a big night there. Donald Trump just entered Fiserv Arena, went up and sat in the special box that the president and vice president sit in, or vice president candidates sit in. He's sitting next to J.D. Vance. J.D. is a U.S. senator from the state of Ohio, my home state. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff, born and raised up in Columbus, Ohio, and been in talk radio for a while. And my stories, I just give common sense opinion on current events. That's what's missing today, and what you turn to talk radio for. You don't just want talking heads. We really appreciate and enjoy common sense. Whether it's something one of the things I love talking about is exact that, common sense. And I've had many folks over the years call me or reach out on social media and say, you know what, I disagree with you on this, this, and this, but you provide good common sense. And that's okay. I don't expect you to love everything I say. I don't expect you to hate everything I say. It's my opinion. And if you agree or disagree and want to weigh in, I encourage you to by dialing 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. Bunch of stories and breaking news going on today. One of the top stories, one of the stories that needs to be mentioned, and that is the corruption trial of Democratic senator from New Jersey, Bob Menendez. He was found guilty on 16 federal counts, including bribery, fraud, extortion, and acting as a foreign agent. So he's a Democrat. He's a senator from New Jersey. The evidence includes cash and gold bars. Now, when I saw the news earlier, they showed pictures the FBI shot of clothing in his closet with thousands of dollars of bills wrapped together with little stickies on it, like taped to his clothing, inside of his clothing. And all I could think about is he comes out after the trial and says he's not guilty. It's a misunderstanding. And I'm thinking, who in their right mind keeps thousands of dollars of cash, first of all, in their home? I know a lot of people do. I grew up in an era where, Depression era, my dad actually had not thousands because we didn't have that kind of money, but, couple $100 stuffed up in the ceiling tiles and stuff. But this guy had thousands. This is a U.S. senator, sitting senator in New Jersey, Democrat, with thousands of dollars of cash all rolled together. So he had it wrapped up, so to speak, the wrapping around it, taped to his clothing in his closet. Now, why are you hiding it in your closet? I mean, it's just a lot about that story that just sticks out and goes, wait a minute, you're going to come out and defy what the ruling is in the verdict and say, no, it's a misunderstanding? It doesn't, the optics don't look good. The verdict has increased the pressure on Menendez to resign from the Senate before his term ends at the beginning of the year. Menendez denies his guilty verdict, and he vows to appeal. The FBI came out and stated it was a politics for profit scheme, is what they've said it is. And it's interesting. The reason that becomes a story on this station in Texas isn't because he's a Democrat. The reason this is a story, and this is the reason that you need to pay attention to that, and the reason you and I are talking about that story, goes bigger. It's more than just a senator in New Jersey, a Democratic senator in New Jersey who's been found guilty of fraud charges. The reason it becomes a big story is this. The Senate is a virtual tie right now. The tiebreaker is Vice President Kamala Harris. If things don't change between now and this election cycle, that seat as a Democrat is going to be vital. Democrats can't afford to lose any seats. And that plays into what's going on at the RNC, and you will see at the DNC, in the whole issue of Joe Biden, Democrats trying to push him to resign. Now, that talk has backed off since the assassination attempt of Trump, right? That has kind of been kicked off your social media feed, off the front pages of papers across the country, and off the headlines of the news. And it's been replaced by the assassination attempt of Donald Trump and the RNC. But the reason the Menendez story is important and the reason it's bigger than just a fraud trial is because the balance of the Senate is hanging. It's dangling. Now, let me remind you of this. This election year, coming up in November, there are 33 U.S. Senator seats up for election, 33 of them. All right? There's 100 U.S. senators. 33 of them, or one-third of them, are up for re-election this year. 23 of them are Democrats or caucus Democrats. Okay? So 19 sitting U.S. senators, the seats held by a current senator are Democrats. 4 of them are independent but caucus with the Democrats. Only 10 of them are Republicans. Now, just common sense. I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I'm not a politician. I didn't go study poli-sci. I'm not an attorney. I'm just a regular guy that just lunch bucket Johnny. Yes, I actually packed my lunch. I took a PB&J and had it sitting at my desk today doing my work throughout the day in my day job and popped 2 Diet Cokes. That's what I do. I just follow the news. I understand it. I understand the political realm. I understand the world of politics. I understand the fight for power and office. I can tell you this. In this environment, when there looks to be somewhat of a red wave as of this second, when there is a large portion of this country that's saying, why does everybody want to tear down Donald Trump? Why are they trying to kill him? Why are our foreign adversaries trying to kill him? Why are people after him? When there's talk about the Democrats really weaponizing law enforcement, with all the talk going on across this country, the average guy, you sit at lunch and overhear people talking who are not political, they're having these conversations. When you've got 23 Democratic senator seats up out of 33, chances are you're going to lose some. And that's very important to you and I because it's the Senate that confirms Supreme Court candidates. Now, the president names them, but the Senate has to approve them. The Senate also has a purse strings with the appropriations. So it's really important that we take back the Senate. And not just by 1 seat. And not just by 2 seats. It's really important that we win the Senate by several seats. So it's a loud and clear message about change in this country. If you want change in this country, if you want policy change economically, energy-wise, border-wise, education-wise, safety and security, and your paycheck, we need to send a message. And that message has to be a red wave, not only at the White House and the House, but the U.S. Senate. That's why the Bob Menendez story is big. They want him to step down now. They want to get him out of office, and they want to be able to replace him with who they want to replace him, as opposed to leaving it up to you and I, the voter, because they say democracy's under attack. Got to hit the bottom of the hour news in just a matter of minutes. Lori Waffen-Schmidt's in the newsroom. She'll have an update on what's going on the RNC, some audio on that, some other stories she's following. We'll continue this conversation after the news. 2 minutes is Lori. 2 minutes from now is Lori. 4 to 5 minutes of news, and then I'll be back after that. We'll continue the conversation about the RNC, the election, and a story locally about a Dallas police officer that posted something online. And I want to hear your opinion about that story. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff, and for Chris Crock on News Talk 820, WBAP, and now on FM at 93.3. So we are about, it was Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. We are 3 days and a few hours post the assassination attempt of Donald Trump. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. If you want to interact with me, you can do it on social media at Westside Jeff across Facebook, X, and Instagram. Or pick up the phone and dial 800-288-9227. So I got to ask a real legitimate question, and this could get controversial. But I got to ask the question. So I see a story today in the Dallas News late this afternoon about an investigation that appears that that police chief Eddie Garcia should fire the sergeant who wrote "Aim Better" in a social media post. As it goes, a man attending the rally was killed, obviously, on Saturday. Later, and on the heels of that, the assassination attempt of Donald Trump on Saturday, later that day, that evening, a Dallas police officer received a complaint from one of their own, Sergeant Arturo Martinez, a 14-year veteran of the department, had written on social media, quote unquote, "Aim Better" on a social media platform. So the sergeant posted "Aim Better." Now, police launched an internal affairs investigation review to, quote unquote, determine what department policy or policies were violated by the comment. That's according to a statement by the Dallas Police Department. Martinez's lawyer has given an unconvincing explanations for his comments. The attorney, Jane Bishkin, acknowledging her client, wrote the post, said he did that the officer did so as a private citizen, not as a police officer. And not only was the post meant for public, not meant for public consumption, she says, although if that's true, then why would you put it up on social media is one of the questions I would ask. But it was also taken out of context, is what they say. Bishkin told media that Martinez was referring to the Secret Service, not the would-be Trump assassin. I didn't see the post, and the post has since been taken down. So I don't have the context of it. I can't read into it. Bishkin, the attorney, said Martinez also had 100% constitutional right to publish the comment. But the police department's media social policy revised in 2020 after more than a dozen officers were disciplined for inappropriate posts put clear guardrails on what is and isn't okay. So I got to pose the question. One, how do you feel about a story? And let me be very generic on this because I don't have all the inside details and I haven't seen the post. So it's hard to give my opinion on exactly what the post says because I don't have an interpretation of it. And my interpretation, if I did have access to it, my interpretation would be different than probably yours and others. But the question that's got to ask is this: should a police officer be fired over a social media post? And at what point is that social media post cross the line? I want you to think about that for a second. Now, let me ask it a different way. If we're going to go after a police officer for that, are we going to go after teachers for that, teachers' unions? If a teacher posts something that may be deemed inappropriate, should we fire them? What about firefighters? What about politicians? What about a judge? What about an insurance salesman? Oh, how about a doctor? How about a doctor that works for a large health system? My question comes back to this. No matter what the post said or didn't say, no matter how it's interpreted or not interpreted, my opinion is simple. That as a good conservative Republican, I am totally against cancel culture. I think it's dangerous, it's bad. And I'm totally for the First Amendment right, freedom of speech. Social media is a platform of freedom of speech, and everybody's got an opinion. And you and I and anyone else, your friends, your neighbors, should have the right to freedom of speech. But freedom of speech doesn't guarantee freedom of outcome, right? But we certainly do have freedom of speech. You know what? My freedom of speech position was challenged 2 and 3 years ago as I watched across this country the Ku Klux Klan holding rallies on government properties. It happened in the state that I grew up in, up in Ohio. I remember reading a story, and I actually followed it when it was happening up in Columbus, with the Klan holding rallies at the Ohio State's capital, the capital in the state of Ohio. And there's a side of me saying, okay, that shouldn't happen. We shouldn't allow that to happen. We shouldn't apply our resources to that. We shouldn't allow state troopers or law enforcement to protect them. We shouldn't allow that to happen. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, wait a minute. The First Amendment guarantees freedom of speech. The First Amendment says whether I like it or not, it gives you and me and everyone else the opportunity to say what they want to say. But it doesn't protect them from the outcome of their speech. And cancel culture is all about that. Cancel culture is all about freedom of speech. So where do you draw the line? Where do you draw that line? When is it okay to have freedom of speech? And when is it okay for the government or a government agency step in and say, no, there's not freedom of speech here? It's a tough line. I could throw you a lot of scenarios that will challenge your thinking, that will make you angry at your core, that'll make you dig deep and say, how do I really believe about it? Are you a constitutionalist? Do you really believe in the First Amendment and freedom of speech? Because if so, to me, the police officer that posted something was a bit of a freedom of speech issue above and beyond the fact that there are policies written, and the policies that they're written are pretty generic, and we got to talk about that. Coming up in 2 minutes, we've got the news with Lori Waffen-Schmidt in the newsroom, and she's got audio from tonight's RNC, including Governor DeSantis and Nikki Haley, who just spoke. We have other speakers coming up. We're going to follow those and dip in and out of those. On the other side of the newscast, I'll be back. Westside Jeff in for Chris Crock, and I want to talk about this Dallas police officer because it's a bigger story than just a cop posting something. Where do you stand on freedom of speech, First Amendment? We'll talk about that in about 6 minutes. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. In for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3.